When she kisses him, he remembers. It's as if his past lives come flooding back to him, much like when we remember who we are by knowing all is love. Welcome to an episode of TrueLove Talks. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about down days, and unfortunately, in a spiritual context or truther context, most people do not talk about their down days. Most people in general, in society, don't talk about their down days because no one likes to be a downer, and also it is so expected that if you are working to be enlightened and working on Ascension and the Christ consciousness path and all of that, it's kind of assumed or expected that you are constantly up or of a high frequency or constantly happy or joyful or blissful. And maybe that's the case when you complete the process. The journey, however, is different, and there's a lot of things that happen along the journey that can really shake you and really bring you down. And the reason I want to talk about this is because most people don't talk about this, and I have been going through a down phase, especially this past week, and it's very difficult because when you have a channel, it's very easy to put yourself in a position where you feel that you are not supposed to have flaws, or not supposed to show your flaws, or not supposed to show that you're down or struggling or having a hard time. And I think I do my best to show all aspects of what's going on with me, to be as honest as possible, because it is not always sunshine and rainbows. And even with what one might say are flaws, your flaws are there for a reason, so they're not even flaws. It's part of your divine perfection. You are perfect as you are. Yes, there are things you need to face and fears and all of those sorts of things, but that doesn't mean that you are flawed or that you are broken in your construct, in your build of who you are. This idea that we come here as sinners and that being part of our identity is dangerous, in the sense that we have a perception of ourselves that is less than perfect, or a perception of ourselves that we have done things we're not proud of, or we have had trauma happen to us, that we have inflicted emotional wounds on ourselves as a result and have not healed from it, is very different from you being flawed as a human being. You are not flawed as a human being. This whole process, okay, this is really important. This whole process of what is labeled Ascension, climbing the stairs, going up the spine, has to do with freeing yourself from the trauma, the pain, the suffering, the bullshit that this physical world has imposed upon us, and getting back to the root essence of who you really are. So yeah, this past week I have had a down phase. This down phase has been strange and hard to deal with, and it's been strange because for the most part, for the last 2 years, I've been feeling pretty good. Most of the drama on the world stage does not affect me. All I need to deal with is my own life and things that affect me personally. So that's shrunk a lot because my interactivity with the world in general has shrunk a lot. That has been beneficial. And I would say that I have been the most relaxed and stress-free I have ever been in the past almost year. Since about April, I have been enjoying myself. When I say enjoying myself, I just mean purely in a positive state of being. And I thought, hey, maybe this is smooth moves from now on. You know, there's not going to be any more upsets. And then all of a sudden, last week, this came along. I did ask others in the Discord group if they were experiencing a similar feeling. And several of you said you were. So, and I had talked to a couple of friends outside of that who have also said that they were experiencing something. And so there's something astrologically going on that fits with what has been going on. Just to describe what's been going on with me, this past week I've been feeling sad. Like, I give up sad. Like, I don't want anything to do with this place sad. Like, just this hollowness, dead inside, not wanting to participate in anything, disillusioned with everything, fed up with truth, fed up with Christ consciousness, the repetitiveness, and the fact that everybody is saying the same shit. And it just became overwhelming and negative. And here in the middle of putting out a couple of videos that were on Ascension, and here I am going, like, people want to know what it is you have to do to ascend, and here I am in a pit of mud. Like, who am I to tell you, like, how to get out? Because I'm not feeling it right now. You know, I'm laughing because this is such a relief to talk about this stuff, and I felt like I had no one to talk to about it. And then so often I feel like I have no one to talk to about what I'm going through, especially if it's negative. I feel very alone. I guess partly because I start looking for examples online of other people going through this experience and not finding it. And so I think, am I the only one going through this experience? Which is absurd because there are millions of people who are going through this experience. And yet that's the feeling that I have. The feeling, if I can't find somebody talking about it publicly, then it can't be happening with other people, because wouldn't these spiritual leaders or these truthers be talking about their experiences more? Wouldn't they say something if they've been through something like this? And apparently not. Otherwise, I'm not, finding it. So yeah, sometimes it's very lonely. Because I've been pretty open in the past about some of the things that I've been going through, and I've had to deal with people who have taken that information and used it against me, I have been a little bit more reserved in sharing my personal experiences. And that also contributes to loneliness or isolation, because this is one of my main outlets to communicate. And so there's very few people with whom I can talk to about this stuff. It was more attached to the feeling of sadness, and it just sort of branched out into all of these other territories. But on top of that, there was this additional layer of confounding petty grievances I've had to deal with that were associated with basically spending bills, and they were consistent, like one on top of the other. Within a very short period of time, I would say within the last week, these things piled up on top of each other. First thing that happened is I got charged for my editing software. I got subscribed to a service I never wanted, and they were charging me monthly for something I never wanted. And they wanted me to pay for an upgrade when I had a lifetime license for my editing software. It's Wondershare Filmora. This was a big deal in the editing YouTube community, and a lot of people were very upset about it. Wondershare Filmora came back and said that they were going to honor the lifetime license and refund the money. You just had to message them. They were going to email everybody to tell them, but I never got an email. So I found out about it, and I contacted them. They ignored me. I finally got a hold of somebody who was going to deal with it, and they eventually agreed to refund my money. So that was taken care of, but it was extremely stressful, and it was extremely annoying, and it was extremely negative. And I thought, okay, what's going on here? Because I don't ever take anything as just face value. It has significance, especially when it's piled up on top of other things. And so I was examining it for the meaning. Otherwise, it's a wasted experience. I was like, what is going on here? Am I being tested for something? But, being ignored after asking 10 times for a refund was not pleasant. But I never lost my temper with them. I never got mad. I just was very firm and direct. And I said, listen, your reputation's in the toilet. It might be a good idea if you honor what you're saying you're going to do. I don't know if it was a test. I think at a certain point you get beyond the tests. So the other thing that happened was my car battery died. So I've had to deal with that. And that's a whole complicated matter. It's not as simple as, oh, let's just go charge it up or let's just go get a new battery. No, this is a problem that I've had before, and I've had testing done before, and there was a whole miscommunication issue with the company that I took it to, and they just seemed incompetent. I got bad vibes from them, so I decided to go somewhere else. The other place agreed to test the battery for free. The first place said they were going to charge me. They just seemed to were going to charge me everything all at once, whether I needed it or not. Okay, well, isn't there a logical progression of elimination? Test the battery first. If it's the battery, then replace the battery. If it's not the battery, then we test the alternator. If it's not the alternator, we test the electrics. There's a logical progression in this process. You don't just test everything because it might be one of these things, but we're going to test it all and charge you all anyway, whether you need it or not, which is absurd. So I left and I was like, okay, I'm not going here. So I was like, okay, what is going on here? Why are these things happening all at the same time? Okay, and then there was this other one. My internet service provider messaged me saying that my promotion was ending. And so I had to contact them and I had to make sure that I got a new promotion. And that actually went fairly smoothly, but the first time I contacted them, they were congested. They didn't have enough people to help all of the inquiries. And I was just like, well, what are we paying for? If we're paying over $100 a month for internet and you can't even afford to hire enough people to service the calls that you're getting, it's frustrating. But anyhow, in the end, the process went smoothly. I got a discount, so now I'm paying a lot less than I was paying before, and I get a better service. And it was fairly stress-free once it actually went through, so that was good. But all of these things happening at the same time is weird. Usually you'll get one thing here and one thing there, but all of them at the same time is odd because they're all very similar. Now, I'm going to tack on here a synchronicity that happened just prior to all of this. Maybe it's related, maybe it isn't, but I'm still going to mention it. I was at my parents' place last week, and usually when I'm at my parents' place, there's some kind of synchronicity on the TV shows that we're watching. And this time's no different. So we were watching the show Chateau DIY. A group of chateau owners are doing certain upgrades or renovations or decorations in their chateau. So we watched 2 episodes of that. In each episode, there were multiple instances of these chateau owners having to charge a battery on a tractor or a cherry picker or some piece of electric equipment like that and put gas in it to get it started. But once they did, it was fine, which I found funny considering a few days later the battery on my car died. That was weird. That's why I say I don't know whether it's connected or not, but it is kind of a weird coincidence. The other thing that showed up in those 2 episodes was both of them had pools of water. One was a water fountain and the other was a swimming pool. And the first one had stagnant water because the fountain was clogged. So they had to clear the clog and then replace the pump to get the fountain going again. The other one was leaking water, and they had to change the pump because the pump was leaking water. So in both instances, it was a pool of water and the pump needed to be replaced. So that's really, really odd. Now, you could look at it as metaphorical for the system that we live in, where like the pools of water, truth must be contained. Keep it cycling, keep it moving, but keep it contained, maybe. And then the gas and the battery, you need a charge. There's the battery, which represents the negative positive polarity of this place, and then the gas, which is the Kundalini energy. It's all very interesting. It could be connected, it may not be. But one thing that I've noticed with these episodes, with these television shows that I watch with my parents, I mean, they noticed it too, that it was weird that they had the same thing happening again and again in both episodes. But, they don't really think much of it. We just sort of laugh and, make jokes about it. But there is something to it. There is something to these messages that are coming through. So yeah, there's been a lot going on this past week. And then on top of that, I've been trying to make videos following up on the last two that I made, because I've had a few people ask, what do we do to ascend? And like every time I go to work on these videos, yeah, there's a bit of resistance there. So whenever I feel resistance, I just sort of back off, focus on something else, because obviously there's a reason why I'm feeling that resistance. And it could be the fact that I'm feeling this low energy, this down, this sadness. Another thing I want to address is this feeling of not wanting to be here. I guess it's kind of like a grieving process in moving on from the last remnants of our attachment to the physical, is how I would explain it. It isn't a fear-based feeling that you would get when you are looking at all of the horrors of the world. That feeling of, I just gotta get out of here, I can't stand it anymore. And it's more of an exhaustion. It's more of a sluggishness. It's kind of like, I give up. What's it all for? Why am I doing this? What's going on? What's happening? Wanting to see a change in your physical world, like a bigger change. I've been trying to understand why this is happening, and I've also been trying to move past it, but at the same time realize that there's probably a reason why it's happening, and appreciate that this is going to pass, as opposed to resisting it and saying, I feel down, I don't want to feel down, let's get over it, let's get out of it, because pushing against it perpetuates it. So on one hand, yeah, I don't want to feel this way. On the other hand, I'm trying to figure out why I feel this way. And I think part of it is astrological. I think it is part of the ascension process, in the sense that so the ascension process happens in stages. There's kind of like goalposts or markers that we pass through to indicate what stage you're at, which is what I meant by it's starting to feel like a game. Because, and this is also why Under the Silver Lake resonated so much with me, well, on its second viewing, not so much on the first, but it resonated so much with me because that movie demonstrates the levels. I mean, especially when they started to show the map with Legend of Zelda and level 9, and I was like, oh, this is what they're talking about, that there's levels to this, and I'm definitely experiencing those levels. After watching Under the Silver Lake, I had a very magical experience with things manifesting to show me that I had gone through the 88 gate, which I'll talk more about in a separate video, because it deserves its own video. I saw these markers and realized that that's what it was, is that, you know, you've passed through the 88 gate. Here you are, this is the stage you're at. And that was kind of an interesting experience and a magical experience. And then all of a sudden, I'm in this pit. Well, I had this really wonderful high and wonderful magical experience with the 88 gate, and now I'm in this pit. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? And this is when I started to put the pieces together of this level, because after you pass through the gate, like it was in the movie, in the Under the Silver Lake, they had that moment with the homeless king who was representative of Pontius Pilate, who decides whether you ascend or you go back down. If you progress past the 88 gate, if you get past Pontius Pilate sentences you to be crucified. The next stage is crucifixion. So you get crucified. And then after that, you are put in the tomb. You're put in the fornix, waiting for ascension. That's what happened to Sarah. She was in the fornix waiting for ascension. It's too late to go back now. This is how I'm interpreting this, is that having passed through the 88 gate, I'm now in the tomb. I've been crucified, and that's why I have this feeling of being dead inside. I have this feeling of sadness. I have this of losing the physical, because when you're crucified, you know, you're dying to the physical, right? You're losing the last of the physical. The last of the physical would be your physical body. It doesn't mean you're literally going to die, but it's allegorical to shedding the last of your attachment to the physical so that you can move into the fornix, into the tomb, waiting to ascend. And so it's this sort of process of mourning the physical and mourning your old life and mourning the things or the lifestyles, or, you know, whatever kind of life that you had envisioned for yourself, shedding that, mourning that, letting go of that, because that's not you anymore. You're moving on. And so the irony of me being frustrated because I couldn't articulate what do you need to do to ascend, because to me it was like, well, here I am down in the dumps. I'm not about to go and tell you what you should do to ascend, and now I'm telling you the reason I can't tell you those things right now is because I'm down in the dumps, and I feel like I'm down in the dumps because I'm in this stage where I'm being crucified after having gone through the 88 gate. So I think this is part of the process, and I think it was important that I share this with you so that you know that it's not all honky-dory. I mean, it's not like I'm wallowing or anything. It's just this sort of general malaise, general numbness, and just going through the motions. And so it's unpleasant. And I guarantee you everybody will feel something different. And you need to know that some of these stages, some of these phases are not going to be pleasant, and they're not going to feel good. You know, they might manifest some wacky stuff or some unpleasant stuff or some weird, you know, synchronicities or something that you're trying to make sense of that are unpleasant. The reason you need to know that is because a lot of people who are trying to warn you against this process are using these negative experiences and twisting them and saying, see, you go through these horrible experiences and it's demons and all this sort of nonsense. And it's not. It's ancient truth. Think about it this way. We've been living in the lower mind. We've been living a life of slavery, attachment to the physical, gratification through the physical, through the external, false doctrines, living in a soup of lies. And the solution is to change the mind, because if everything is made out of mind, out of thoughts, you have to change the mind. There's no other way about it. The definition of that is ascension. Ascension from the lower mind to the higher mind. That's all it is. It isn't like taking off into space. It isn't rising into space, into the sky. It isn't, you know, the Jesus coming to save you. It's you saving you. All right, so thanks for listening. Hope you're having a great day. If you're having a rough day, I feel you. It'll pass. We'll get through this. Thanks for listening. Bye for now. If you like this video, please show your support for my channel. Like, share, subscribe, comment, contribute. Contributions over $15 will receive a link to the Johnny Depp Dark Shadows material, so please be sure to include your email address. Kindly visit my website, subscribe to my backup channels, join the Discord group. All links are in the description box below. Thanks for listening. Hope you're having a great day. Bye for now.